Report!
Both engine cores have spun to zero. We're drifting.
Archer pods are cold. I'll need to rekey the system.
Do it and find out where we are.
Sitting in the middle of Halo 2's campaign is a turning point, an abrupt and perhaps controversial change of scenery, reviving one of science fiction's most destructive and dangerous weapons.
What exactly am I looking at?
That is another Halo.
Say what?
Designed to exterminate all sentient life, Halos are mistakenly believed by the Covenant, Halo's antagonists, to be gateways to fulfilling their religious prophecy. As the Master Chief in Halo Combat Evolved, the first series entry, you destroy what was thought to be the only Halo and stop Covenant efforts to activate and unleash its lethal blast. And in Delta Halo and Regret, levels 8 and 9 of Halo 2, the Chief is faced with yet another Halo, along with more Covenant determined to activate it. The two levels not only reignite Halo's sci-fi mystery undertones, but exemplify Bungie's masterful game design. Coupled with some of the very best pieces of Halo 2's phenomenal soundtrack composed by Marty O'Donnell and Mike Salvatori, Delta Halo and Regret form my personal favorite Halo 2 levels and are among my favorite moments across the entire series. Of course, with all that said, Halo 2's midpoint also pivots its story away from Earth, where it began, and sets up a somewhat sudden cliffhanger ending that, at the time, may have been the game's most criticized and divisive feature. So while there may be debate as to the two levels' legacy, what isn't up for debate is their outstanding quality. Delta Halo and Regret are similarly structured to and execute the same task as the Silent Cartographer Combat Evolved's fourth level. Each level, like many levels in Halo, is sort of a pseudo-sandbox with vehicle-heavy gameplay, begins with a bombastic action sequence that narrows and becomes more linear, all the while foreshadowing a deeper, darker mystery players are on the cusp of unearthing. An early video of mine discusses how Bungie does this in the Silent Cartographer, and part of that video is a famous quote from then Bungie developer Jamie Griesemer, who, in a making-of documentary about Halo 2, famously said Halo was 30 seconds of fun that happened over and over again.
In Halo 1, there was maybe 30 seconds of fun that happened over and over and over and over again. So if you can get 30 seconds of fun, you can pretty much stretch that out to be an entire game. Encountering a bunch of guys, melee attacking one of them before they were aware, throwing a grenade into a group of other guys, and then cleaning up the stragglers before they could surround you. And so you can have all the great graphics and all the different characters and lots of different weapons with amazing effects, but if you don't nail that 30 seconds, you're not going to have a great game.
Years later, in a 2011 interview with Engadget, Griesemer elaborated, saying his full quote had been unused and that those 30 seconds weren't meant to be identical sequences, but rather played in different environments with different weapons, different vehicles, against different enemies, against different combinations of enemies, sometimes against enemies that are fighting each other. No 30-second stretch of Halo is ever repeated. The missions are constantly changing the context on you. Silent Cartographer is a great example of how Bungie employs this 30-second mentality, and by the time Delta Halo begins, Bungie's 30-second recipe is nearly flawless, blending together different combinations of weapons, enemies, and environments while sprinkling about a pinch of open-endedness. Delta Halo and Regret aren't a new take on Bungie's now 2-game-old formula, but instead the epitome of it. Following the Covenant after they jumped away from Earth, Chief and his allies ride the ship's coattails and arrive at Delta Halo. It's the Chief's job to drop down onto the ring and stop the Prophet of Regret, a Covenant leader, from activating it. The opening sequence is thrilling and quite literally drops you straight into the action. The beginning battle is a firefight up a cliff with Covenant cannons firing down at you. You start the level with a rocket launcher, the first, if small, choice Bungie gives you. Rockets will make quick work of the Covenant guns as well as the infantry hold up in the ruins above, but once you take the cliff top, the Covenant launch a counterattack. If you used all your rockets to take the cliff top, you'll need to take cover and avoid the incoming fire from the Covenant dropships. If you saved some rockets, the dropships become much less of a threat. The ruins give you a few ways to defend from enemy waves too. Holding on the ground works, but you'll also find a sniper rifle on the roof. Once the cliff top is secured, a Warthog signals Delta Halo's first transition. and the level opens up. A quick drive in one stunning landscape later, you'll need to lower a bridge in order to continue your advance. With a Covenant tank lobbing rounds across the canyon, your fight for the bridge's control room will be done on the move, whether by Warthog or Ghost, which Bungie so graciously provides to be used at your discretion, especially for those playing through in co-op. With the bridge lowered, Bungie presents another option, a Scorpion tank. Assuming you take the tank, the next few minutes is a high explosive rumble through tightly packed corridors of Covenant defenses, with turrets, ghosts, and infantry attacking you. Eventually, you'll reach a point where you'll have to ditch whatever vehicle you're using, but not before Bungie delivers an assortment of power weapons. Choose your weapons, head inward, fight enemies on your way, turn a corner, and you're at a sniper gallery. Over the course of about 30 minutes, Bungie takes you through a surprise raid on an enemy position, which includes a counterattack, a battle for a bridge, urban tank warfare, and into a medium to long range firefight, likely, though not required, to be fought with sniper rifles. This is the 30 seconds mentality on beautiful display, with smooth gameplay transitions that give players options on how to proceed, whether they be playing by themselves or with a few friends. Bungie's personality radiates through this gameplay. Notice how often you turn a corner only to find an enemy with their back toward you. It happens a lot throughout the series. Bungie wants you leaping into the fight to set the tone and give you an opportunity to pick up a new weapon and change tactics on the fly. Halo's fantastic writing makes Bungie's personality whole. Charismatic, lighthearted dialogue penetrates the nonstop action and infuses it with charm and wit, and Delta Halo provides some great examples of this.
I got a good view coming in. There's a big building in the middle of this island's lake.
I saw it too. It looked like a temple. If I were a megalomaniac, and I'm not, that's where I'd be.
Whoa. Postcard. Dear Sarge, kicking ass in outer space, wish you were here.
I heard that, jackass.
Delta Halo closes, at least on normal difficulty, with a quasi-mini boss fight, as you'll need to eliminate 2 elite honor guard among the toughest enemies in the game for the level to end. A cutscene confirms the Prophet of Regret is attempting to activate the ring, meaning the Chief will need to stop him before it's too late. Regret picks up right where Delta Halo left off. A much more linear infantry-focused level, Bungie starts the festivities off by packing the room full of different types of enemies. Once outside, you'll need to be quick on your feet, as both common enemies and snipers attempt to halt your advance toward the Prophet. The next few minutes is both long-range and close-quarters combat, Bungie forcing you to divert your attention toward both. After a few minutes of good old Master Chiefin', the Covenant drop in the big guns, hunters, tough enemies that'll soak up ammo and deal lots of damage. At this point, and dependent on difficulty, you could very well be short on weapons and ammo, making this showdown with hunters a little tricky, but being in an open courtyard-like area with plenty of room to maneuver, the fight is manageable. Here, Regret slows down, a pace we didn't really get in Delta Halo. To get to the Prophet's location in the middle of a lake, you'll need to hitch a ride on a few gondolas. Once again, a selection of weapons, including some power weapons, are dumped for your enjoyment, and at this point it sure seems like Bungie's saying, screw it, go nuts. Being a relatively straightforward and narrow level, the power weapons do add some variability. Both gondola rides, which are separated by a lengthy on-foot sequence, give you the opportunity to fight a couple different ways. Gondolas filled with enemies float toward you, and maybe you equip a sniper rifle and get a few preemptive shots off, or maybe you load up a shotgun and board the enemy gondola before they can board yours. Each ride ends docking at a fortified Covenant building, and you can use your sniper rifle to thin out the enemies before they get a chance to attack you, or perhaps you'd rather wait and storm their defenses up close. There's definitely something to be said about how Regret's gondola sequences lengthen, some may even argue artificially lengthen, the level, and there's other levels in Halo 2 that employ similar slow-moving sequences that, no matter their purpose, extend playtime by quite a bit, but Regret's gondolas are still tons of fun, even if part of their purpose was padding. The intermediate area between the two gondola rides is more on-foot combat and includes a pair of neat underwater elevator rides, used to fill in players on ongoing story developments. Halo 2 explores the Halo universe far more than Combat Evolved did, and part of this universe is the political cunning and conniving of the Prophets. Halfway through Regret, you learn the Prophet of Regret has angered the other prophets to the point that they may even want him dead. As Cortana, the chief's AI companion, puts it,
Listen to this. Your haste has jeopardized the fulfillment of our covenant, threatened our grand design. That you shall be spared a public display of our contempt is thanks only to Mercy and his wise counsel. Truth, Mercy, Regret. 3 prophet hierarchs. Killing Regret should shake up the covenant leadership, but frankly, it sounds like you might be doing Truth a favor.
Also at Regret's middle point is another great example of Bungie's 30-second gameplay loop. There's a room filled with snipers, more honor guards, and in the middle, hunters. The hunter battle you had earlier seems quaint compared to the fight you're in now. It's a great little skirmish that has you bouncing between the room's crowded edges and its lesser crowded center floor, where you'll probably have to deal with the hunters. Not wanting to calm you down too much, Bungie sics a squad of invisible enemies on you as you exit the building. After the second gondola ride, and as you near the level-ending boss fight with the Prophet of Regret, a quick cinematic plays. A Covenant armada warps in, upping the urgency of the moment. Your experience fighting the Prophet of Regret will vary pretty wildly depending on the difficulty, but it's not a fight you want to take your time with regardless. Honor guards continuously spawn to defend their leader, so you'll need to finish him off as fast as possible. The Prophet's cannons are deadly but slow to fire. You'll need to get close, climb aboard his chair, and straight up punch him to death. Once the Prophet's defeated, the closing cutscene banks on the tone foreshadowed by the appearance of the Covenant fleet. A Covenant cruiser fires down onto the building, forcing the chief to jump into the water below. Seemingly rendered unconscious from the impact, the chief sinks into the lake. You may wonder if the Covenant were planning to kill Regret anyway, and that the chief's appearance only gave them a good excuse to fire. As the chief sinks deeper into the lake, Halo's newest and before unseen mystery reaches out and grabs him. Of course, we now know this mystery to be the Gravemind, the guiding brain behind the Flood, the race of parasitic aliens Halos were made to exterminate, and for whom the Chief is forced into a dubious alliance with later on in the game, but all that will have to wait for another video. I wouldn't be surprised if there are those who associate this scene with more of an infamous light. Halo 2 had began with a huge battle for the defense of Earth and humanity, and suddenly you're back on another Halo with the same mission you had in the first game. Once you finally make it back to Earth, Halo 2 ends, putting the giant defense of humanity's homeworld on hold until Halo 3. So Delta Halo and Regret may not be as enjoyable a moment for others, but it'll always be for me. These levels were a grand display of Bungie's brilliant design, narrative, and penchant for driving a deep science fiction mystery. It was and is a formula at full stride, a moment of bliss when a development team and their iconic action hero were in their prime.